Welcome back to Coffee and Conversation. So, for all my Audie fans, he is sleeping in the front window. Now, I keep his cat tree in the front window, and in fact, I just had to get some new curtains in there because he started chewing on them. It was bad enough that he was playing with them and getting them dirty with his grubby little paws, but then he started nibbling on them. So now the ties are full of little holes, exactly the same size as Audie's teeth, as well as the dirty paw prints. So he's looking at the snow, and the snow in my yard is almost gone, but the snow in my neighbor's yard across the street, and he has a perfect view of that, is still on the ground. So, yes, he's staring at snow. He did go out yesterday and play in the snow. He wanted to. I wasn't going to let him because I know he doesn't always like it. So he went out, he played in the snow for about a half an hour, came back in, and then refused to go out again. Even this morning, and he always goes out in the morning. That's part of his routine. He gets 20 minutes outside. Wouldn't go. She's like, no, there's snow out there. I'm staying in the house, which suited me just fine. So now, yes, he's looking at the snow from a safe distance. Yellow. Now, I'm not wearing yellow in my clothing. In fact, here, this is actually pink and white in the logo, but I am in the earrings. So the yellow is for Catherine. It's for Lex's mom. It's for everyone dealing with cancer. We are just sending out our very, very best wishes to you for a swift and full recovery. All right, we're going to take a quick look at the intro, give you a chance to go grab a cup of tea, a cup of coffee, a cup of whatever, and we'll be back in 22 seconds. Okay, so my original plans for this video were to go through some of the comments that you folks left about your New Year's resolutions, what you're looking forward to. We're going to save that for another time because between the time I filmed yesterday's video and the time I'm filming today's video, I came across a little bit of information that just troubled me. Now, I had suspected this for a while, but I started digging into it, and yeah, it's confirmed. First of all, I started taking a look at the World Happiness Index. And this is a table that is put together every year showing who the happiest people in the world are. Invariably, it is the Scandinavians, and one or another of those countries will occupy the top spot. In fact, virtually all of them are in the top 10. And I should tell you that as a person of Scandinavian descent myself, with my favorite uncle being a Finn, I have always considered the Finns to be a Scandinavian people. Now, they don't have the same language base that the rest of Scandinavia does, but when you look at a map, it's very hard to simply take that country and say, oh, I'm sorry, they don't count because they don't speak a Nordic language. No, Finns are Scandinavians just like everyone else on that peninsula. So invariably, they are making the list of the happiest people in the world. Those of us in the UK and the US, we're somewhere around 20, give or take. UK is a little higher than we are. and we are, I think, placed 23 this year. It's the US. For the rest of the Anglophone world, Canada is almost always in the top 10, but no surprise there. I mean, we all know Canadians are just plain happy people. Just honestly, they have nothing better to do up in the cold north than play hockey and smile a lot. So yeah, we all know they're happy. But Australia and New Zealand usually place very high on the list as well. And I think both countries are either in the top 10 or just hovering right up against it. And they often change places. I think New Zealand was higher than Australia last year. Australia's higher than New Zealand this year. So within the Anglophone world, the US is dead last. But as I say, we're at like the 23rd place, and this is out of close to 150 countries that they poll. So it's not bad, but still, we tend to be a little more miserable than most. And our British friends are just a couple of steps ahead of us. So that much more happy. And that led me to look at a lot of other things, because whenever I see anybody else's research, I want to know how it's done, because I always look at research from the point of view of criticism. Frankly, you tell me you've researched something, I want to see your methodology. I want to see that your research is on target, that I don't have problems with how you arrived at your results. Well, when I started looking at it, I started seeing some other things, and this is where my suspicions were confirmed. Young people are less happy today than at any time since they have been doing this. And it looks as if they are becoming more unhappy with every passing year. And I thought we should talk about this, because even though the majority of this community consists of baby boomers, and frankly, we were the privileged generation, no two ways around that. But we still have many millennials, and we do have a few Gen Z people. I am always talking about our little Gen Z member, Lex, from Sweet Hister Tea. And it's so frightening when I look at these people. This is the generation of our children and our grandchildren, and they're not happy. And they are becoming less and less happy as time marches on. And I'm not sure why. I don't know if anybody really knows why. When you say to somebody, why are you unhappy? Maybe they'll give you a reason, and maybe that reason will be accurate. Maybe it won't, because the problem with unhappiness, as we all know, because we have all experienced unhappiness, is when you are in the bottom of that well, it's awfully hard to figure out how you got there. All you want to do is climb out. So saying to somebody, okay, you're unhappy, tell me why, the results are not necessarily going to be very reliable, because you are asking the person least likely to be able to identify the causes. And I'm quite concerned. As I mentioned before, we, the baby boomers, were born into the most privileged generation that ever walked on planet Earth. We came out after the Second World War. We did not have that conflict as our parents did. Our grandparents had World War I before them. And going back into time, most people rarely went 20 or 30 years without a major conflict on their own soil. So we tend to think of wars, especially wars on our own soil, as a feature of the distant past. When someone says war on your soil, I tend to think back to like the 12th century. I don't tend to think of this as a modern phenomena because war was not on my soil. And yes, we had 9/11. It was a terrorist attack, but it wasn't war. Yes, Pearl Harbor was bombed, but frankly, that was very, very geographically remote from me on the East Coast. We did have the Civil War, which was 100 years before I was born. So none of this actually resonates with me. And I know our British friends, baby boomers, just like those of us in the US, in Canada, they were bombed. They came into a world that was pockmarked from the Blitz. And they had rationing for a lot longer than the rest of us did, because within the Anglophone world, we have America, we have Canada, we have Australia and New Zealand. We have nations that are very well able to keep ourselves fed. We are nations that export food routinely to other parts of the world. The UK, no, not quite so much. They were and still are a major importer of food. So even our UK friends who probably got the worst of it within the scope of our generation and the context of us as Anglophone people, still the most privileged generation that ever walked the face of the earth. So when we were young and we were having children, we were looking at life the same way our parents were. And we were saying, I had a great life. My kids are going to have a great life too. And it didn't work out that way. It didn't work out that way. By the time the millennials, Gen X and the millennials, because I don't want to leave Gen X out of there. By the time Gen X and the millennials came along, we were dealing with a very different economic landscape. And that group of young people was less likely to stay with the same company. Years ago, and this is the 1980s, so the generation we were talking about then was Gen X, were staying at their jobs for an average of 3 to 5 years. 10 years later, it was 3 years or less. Whereas in our generation, our parents stayed at their jobs for their entire career. And many of us would say, well, I just had one employer. And that seemed normal. That's just not normal anymore. The economy changed. We find now that even though our parents were able to support larger families on the income generated by one working parent that may have had no more than a high school education, now 2 college graduates are having trouble making ends meet and feeding their families. So, yeah, it's a different world out there, and there are a lot of reasons that these subsequent generations are not experiencing all of the benefits we experienced when we were young people. And certainly I can remember being very optimistic as a young person in my 20s and 30s, and I truly, you know what, I was just going to say I truly was a young person, hard to believe, but I was recently going through my photo album, and I'm going to grab some pictures because I started scanning and photographing, and I'm going to grab a couple of those pictures. Yes, I truly was a young person once. So here you go. Here are some photos. And this might, by the way, answer some of the questions I'm sure many of you may have about why I always self-identify as a redhead. Because, yeah, that's my natural color. Okay, that was just for the fun of it because I had the pictures handy. On the other hand, I often have curiosity about what you all look like. What do you look like today? What did you look like when you were young? And I know because of the nature of our parasocial relationship, I'm probably never going to get answers to those questions, but at least I can now answer your questions about who I was 50 some years ago. Yep, there you go. That was me. I think that we need, as the parents, grandparents, the elders of our society, I think we need to take a good hard look at what the younger generations are facing. And again, one bit of research leads to another. And I started taking a look at what young people, these are the younger millennials and the young Gen Z people, are saying online, on YouTube, etc., about what is contributing to their unhappy feelings. And I get it. A lot of these people, now mind you, this is the point of view of young women, not the point of view of young men, which tends to be a little more complex. And we'll probably get into that at a later date, but not on this video. Young women today are being told they're not good enough. That's the thing. It's not a question of processing like Hollywood glamour the way we did when we were young. We would see actresses, models on magazines on the silver screen, and we knew that even though they were probably very pretty, we knew it was lighting, it was makeup, and no one was trying to con us into believing this was reality. Oh no. In fact, in our day, they were trying to tell us it was all the results of Miss Clairol hair color or, Maybelline eyeshadow, because they wanted to sell us beauty products. And they were very straightforward about it. Oh, Marilyn Monroe got that out of a tube of lipstick. The kids today have completely different messages that are blasting out at them. And that is, first of all, even more unrealistic beauty standards because, oh my gosh, people barely out of their teens, and sometimes not even, are having plastic surgery to change their looks. They are on all manner of drugs. Ozempic is the big one. They are on medicines designed for diabetes in order to lose weight. One of the most insidious things is they are being told from the time they are in elementary school. For those of you overseas, that's grades 1 through 6. So you may think of that as primary. It's before you get into secondary, before you get into high school. So they're young, they're under 12, and they are being told that if they do not go out and purchase several $100s worth of skincare products and spend easily an hour or two every day hydrating and moisturizing and toning their face and peeling their skin with harsh chemicals literally every single day, that they're crap. They're not worth looking at. They are just mag the hag. Why would anybody ever pay attention to them? Their lives are going nowhere. And those are the images they are getting bombarded with all the time. And the people bombarding them with those images are social media influencers who get their looks from makeup, cosmetic surgery, weight loss chemicals, and filters. So it's not even, if you separated them from the camera, they would still look like that. Oh no. filters and Photoshop. So this new generation is being told if they don't naturally look like someone else's artificial creation, they're no good. And I know right now I'm focusing on looks, but the fact is when you are dealing with young women, especially in this society, everything is wrapped up in your looks. And the truth of the matter, and this is a sad truth that I would not want to share with young women, but it's out there. If you are pretty, you are more likely to get hired for a job. You're more likely to get a promotion. You're more likely to get a raise. You're more likely to get a better job. So, yeah, we live in a world that not only judges you by your looks, but rewards you accordingly. What a world we've left them. And I don't think my generation intended in any way to do this. I'm going to wash my hands of responsibility for that, because remember, my generation was, peace, love, and smoke a lot of dope. This was not the message we intended to give our children, our grandchildren. The message we intended to give them was, hey, do your own thing. Everything is beautiful. That's who we were. But somehow this message was transmitted to them anyway, and it is being transmitted day in, day out, every time they look at a magazine, turn on television, or even pick up their phones. They are getting distorted images from people who are of no value. I know this is going to sound mean, but I'm going to go for it. People who are of no value whatsoever to society. These are people with no skills, no education, nothing, except they've somehow glommed on to the right algorithm and created popular social media platforms. And that's it. Absolutely it. Anybody got any idea what the Kardashians have been educated to do? I don't think so. I'm pretty sure none of them have been educated to do anything. I'm pretty sure all of them, without social media, would have no lives whatsoever. Not to mention the scores and scores of Kardashian wannabes on YouTube and TikTok who are doing these self-improvement, wellness, beauty channels. Oh, look at this, here's a new product. Oh, come and watch me while I do my haul from Sephora. Oh, look at this, I just came back from Hermes with a $7,000 handbag. That's what these kids are getting. They do not have $7,000 handbags. They are not likely to get $7,000 handbags anytime in the near future, yet these social media influencers are giving them a clear message every single day that if they don't have that handbag, they're worthless. And mind you, these are worthless social media influencers themselves who are giving them the message. I just, Lord, every now and then I just think, oh, we should just do away with this. Now keep in mind, I love the internet. I absolutely adore it. The internet is what keeps me connected to the world. It's what keeps me connected to you folks. I love it. You could take almost anything in my life from me before I would let you take the internet. I mean, it's like Audie. I would clutch Audie to my breast, and then I would clutch my internet connection, probably in that order. I love it, but I am seeing an incredible level of abuse, and it's pernicious because it's subtle, and we don't recognize it until we see the consequences, until we see the downside, until we see beautiful young women and just lovely, fresh-faced girls going out into the world, cramming themselves into pants that are 2 sizes too small, shoes that are 2 sizes too small. Oh, and by the way, they will talk about getting toes removed to fit into those shoes. We see that horrifying consequence, and then we say, wait a minute, what are these images doing to our children, our grandchildren? How did this happen? How is it that we have, like I say, 12-year-old girls doing chemical peels on their face every night? Whoa, that is so scary. And one has to wonder what these poor kids are going to look like by the time they get into their 20s. One also has to wonder where the parents are while this is going on. But unfortunately, I can give you the answer to that. They're working because at some point, our society decided that a living wage was something that would be shared by 2 people. Used to be you needed one parent to work, the other parent stayed with the kids. Not anymore. Absolutely not anymore. To just have a reasonable standard of living, the kind of standard of living our parents had, you need 2 people working. So no, there is no one at home minding the store. By the way, did you notice we've got company? I don't know if you can tell, but he's staring out the other window now because, yes, there might be snow out there too, and he needs to be able to spot it. So anyway, I wanted to throw that out there because this is something that is just terribly scary to me. But I'm not going to just say, oh, look, the world's going to hell in a handcart and there's nothing we can do about it. There's a lot we can do about it. Remember, we are now sort of the elder statesmen of our cultures. We are, all right, come on up. Come on, you can sit here and then you can stare out the window at the snow. We are the people with the experience, hopefully with the wisdom. We have got to start reaching out to these young people and telling them, no, this is not what you need to be doing. You need to be looking at yourself, not looking at some social media influencer who is, 22% plastic surgery, 43% Instagram filter, and, Lord, 10% Ozempic. No. We need to take these kids by the hand and take them away from that paradigm and try to encourage them to embrace something more real and not this artificial, ridiculous beauty standard, because this is what they are being bombarded with every day of their lives. So it's up to us to reach out, and say, no, let me give you a different message. You are worthwhile. It is not just about your looks. You need to consider an education. You need to look at your interpersonal skills. If you want to make a change, that's where you should make changes. How well do you get along with your peer group? Many, especially from Gen Z, were denied the normal socialization opportunities because of 2020. That took a big chunk out of their lives at a time when many of them were learning how to transition from childhood interactions to adult interactions. We need to be the catcher in the rye. We need to be there for them and help them see that there's another way. And I know from my part, I am just going back to the great wisdom of the 60s, which I got from rock and roll. You can't always get what you want, but if you try, you can get what you need. Things like that, the stuff our generation grew up on, you know. We need to reach out. And it's not that hard. It's really not that hard. I have no difficulty, personally, befriending younger people. I always thought when I was young, I thought that would be older, that when I got older, that would be the problem in my life, that I would be cut off from young people. And I thought one day I'm going to get old and I'm not going to know anybody young, and I'm not going to know what the fashionable clothing is. I'm not going to know who the hot rock stars are. I'm just going to be isolated. I'm going to turn into my grandmother. No, actually, it's not true. I find today's group of young people are completely open to making friends with people outside their own age group in a way our generation was not when we were younger. So, yeah, I mean, I can talk about some of the evil that is being thrust upon them, but fundamentally, these are great young people because they are expressing positivity when they can. So I think it's up to us. Reach out. And that is what I want to leave you with today. Find a young person. Reach out. Make sure they understand you care about them. You care about them even if they don't look like some hopelessly distorted cartoon character of a social media influencer. So, that is what I have for you today. I'm glad you got a chance to see Audie. I know he took no interest in the camera. He's completely obsessed with the snow, even though he doesn't want to play in it. But you saw that yourself, staring out the window, wouldn't even pay attention to the rest of this. But I am glad you got a chance to see him all the same. We are going to take a look at a slideshow on the way out. I hope to see you all next time. And in the meanwhile, have a terrific day and reach out to a young person.